Hey guys, haven't seen you in like a week or something. Welcome to the stream. Sorry my hoodie's all jacked up. So as you can see, today's topic is going to be ridiculous comments that I get every single day. Thanks again, or also thanks for the 4,000 subscribers. Thanks for the comments, and thanks for actually contributing towards those 4,000 subscribers. Had to deal with Zinmi Yangzi's disciples today. What was that guy's name? I think I know who you're talking about. I actually commented on his thing myself. Actually, that his comment is actually going to be one of the ones I talk about in this video today, or the stream today. It's been about a week, but great to have you back. Yeah, it's been one whole week since live stream. That's very unusual, isn't it? Still have that Christmas tree. Oh yes, I do. Thanks for pointing that out. Whoops. It's been really busy, guys. I'm sorry. I just started school today, actually, too. So just got out like a couple hours ago. Let me go ahead and get rid of that tree. Alright. There, no tree. Oh, wait, nope, still got lights. Hold on. There. Alright, anyway. And now my headset's dying. Like I said, I'm all sorts of jacked up today, as usual. I'll get better. That's an early start to a semester? I think that's about normal, isn't it? Like early January when you start the spring semester, and then it ends like what, March, April-ish. Alright, so yeah, let's go ahead and start off this these ridiculous comments, shall we? Usually end of January. I don't know. I'm new to college, so I wouldn't know. This is only my second semester, or my first ever spring semester. So yeah, let's go ahead and start this one. I actually just got this comment today. Bring out the big screen for this. Okay, so the comment says, this was actually on my top 5 most surprising African achievements video. Right? You know, that video backed everything up factually, no biases, no racism, whatever. Top 5 African achievements. The comment says, so much power and wisdom. Do you listen to your Malawian brothers and did you listen to your Malawian brothers and finally ate an albino? And I'm like, oh, well, did you listen to your Belgian brothers and kill off 10 million Africans in the Congo? Or were you too busy using Native American infants as dog food while raping their mothers and bragging about it in your journals? Don't base the actions of the few on the race as a whole, because I can do the same thing to you, only your people are responsible for far worse crimes. I like to give people comments like that, because when they make such bold and racist assumptions about our people, you can find bad and ugly in every race throughout history all the time. And usually in higher degrees than the insults that they throw at us. So, I mean, that's true. That Native American infants as dog food thing is completely true. Christopher Columbus wrote in his own journals that he used Native American babies as dog food. And he talked about literally raping thousands of women on the Taino and Arawak Native Americans of the Caribbean islands. So, it's truth. I don't hate white people, though. I hate people like him, but I don't hate white people. You know? They could learn a lot from me in that regard. You're definitely justified by responding in that kind. Yeah, exactly. You know, it's like, I'm not insulting white people as a whole. I'm insulting him and people like him. That's it. Regardless of what color they are. Columbus did all that? Yes, he did. He did do all that. He wrote it in his own journals that he did that stuff. So, I would cite it for you, but I can't remember. Not gonna lie. But I've seen it. He was a very bad man. In fact, a lot of states are actually have actually removed Columbus Day because he's such a terrible person. They removed Columbus Day, and what did they rename it? I think it's Indigenous Peoples Day or something. They got rid of Columbus Day altogether and renamed it like Indigenous Peoples Day. Like several states have done that already, and more states do it every year. Hopefully in the future we'll stop heroizing Columbus completely. Exactly, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I could bet you anything if Columbus was black, we would have never celebrated in the first place. So, anyway, yeah, that's just one comment. Let's go on to the next one. People from Asian, including Europe continent, are the devil. And this shows, you know, I'm unbiased, you know. Obviously a black person wrote the comment. People from Asians, including Europe continent, are the devil. Just outright blindly racist towards people from the entire Eurasian supercontinent. Just utter hatred. Adam ruins everything. What do you mean, Adam? Who's Adam? I always thought we should celebrate Vespucci Day instead. Yeah, most people don't even know who that is. Most people don't even know where America got its name from. Alright, we got 16 people. Anybody else have any actually this comment's pretty just so blindly racist that it's no point in even discussing this one, to be honest. And I'm not, as you can tell, most people blur out the names of people like this to preserve their privacy. I don't care. I want their shame to be labeled. This person says, "What if this is on my What If Africans Beat Europeans to America First video? What if Africans beat Europeans to America first? LOL. It wouldn't make a difference. They would still rape, kill, and pillage you. Take a look at right now. Southeast Africa, Asia, America killed millions of Vietnamese, Laos, blah blah blah. Yeah. Take a look at the Middle East right now. America killed blah blah blah. Take a look right now, Eastern Europe. So it makes no difference." Oh, actually, this one, no. I don't even know why I showed this one. I completely read that one wrong when I look back at it. He was basically saying any human would have done just as bad. So, yeah, that was actually my own bad. You always missed the beginning. Eric, you're only like, what, 5 minutes late? It's no big deal. You know my stream schedule, right, Eric? 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, every Monday. As long as you get here at like 2:58 p.m., you won't miss my stream. Every Monday. Adam Conover is a TV host. He has a show called Adam Everything, and he ruins Columbus. I haven't seen that, but I'll definitely check it out. Denise Nix. I rarely comment on videos, but I will never understand the deep-seated hate on anything to do with black people. It is an obsession with some white people. This video introduces a great discussion and something I've always wondered myself. That's exactly what this whole stream is about, what she just said. She was commenting on my video, what if Africa was never colonized by Europeans? And yeah, that's pretty much what this encompasses. Also, by the way, that video, I'm not sure, some of you may have noticed already, but I disabled the comment section on that video because it was just so toxic. It just like ruined my day. Every time I hop on my YouTube, I have like 6 new comments. All 6 of them are on that video, and it's all people saying stuff like, you know, LOL, they'd still be beating each other over the head with wooden clubs and stuff like that every day, every single day, several times a day. That's all I see. So I mean, I just disabled it. Plus, YouTube age restricted it anyway. So I mean, what's the point? I'm gaining nothing from that video but hate. So there's a news in me. We and Augustus just had an argument with him. What's his name, Kai? Because I think I know who you may be talking about, and I actually got a comment from someone with a name that seems like it was probably him, which I will be going over in this video. Oh, just lost a subscriber. Wonder what that was about. People always go for LCD. LCD. Not sure what you're talking about. Some hot tub guy. Yep, that's him. That's him. His comment is in these comments I'm going over. I'm gonna show you one from him. A lot of videos that deal with ancient history disable comments to avoid these toxic comments and revisionist historians. The thing is, I enjoy and encourage discussion on my videos. That's why I make these. I like for like-minded individuals to discuss it, and I don't want to punish those like-minded individuals because of the racists. But that video just got to the point where it was too bad to even handle anymore. Like 1 in every 20 comments would be a good one, and then like the other 19 would be bad ones. So it just wasn't any point anymore. Lowest common denominator. Ah, got it. Sorry, I never heard it abbreviated that way. All right, so yeah. Let's go to the next comment. In Islam, and in the words of Prophet Muhammad, black people are referred to as raisin heads and considered lowly beasts. I've never heard that, by the way, through my research. But anyway. In fact, Muslim slave traders right to this day castrate their male African slaves. That's right, castrated African male slaves can be found and bought on Facebook sale pages. African females, including women, were routinely raped and even today marched across the desert, most dying in transit. If they should happen to get pregnant during one of the many rapes, they give birth to a baby who is usually beaten to death. Even in the slave owner said black slaves and baby's father, but yeah, white people are so evil. Pfft. First of all, this is not on the same video, the What If Africa Was Never Colonized by Europeans video. First of all, I never said white people were evil. Not once in the video. Which I replied to her asking her when did I say that, and of course she didn't reply, because they never reply when they know they're wrong. But anyway, I asked her why they're so evil, or when did I say they're evil, and she didn't reply. Secondly, they did all the stuff that she described about what they do to African slaves. They did the same for every slave. In fact, if you look up the Arabic slave trades, entire coastal towns of Europe for centuries were underpopulated because of fear of being taken as slaves by Islamic people. So it's not just African slaves. Secondly, again, it's like, when did I ever say white people are evil? And third, this is one common theme I'm seeing in that video time and time again. The racist white people are constantly pointing out how bad the Arabic slave trade was in comparison to the European. Unapologetically just saying Arabs were bad, you should hate them, not us. It's a little ridiculous. I always reply just asking, why are you people constantly trying to downplay the Arabic or the transatlantic slave trade by saying Arabs are bad? Or by pointing out bad things that black people have done. Like, why do you just completely steer away from that topic? I could see if it had a valid reason or point to being brought up, but it never does. Alright, OMG, I hate Afrocentrists because they make me feel like I'm arguing pro-white supremacists, which I am not, but sheesh. I mean, Afrocentrists are just as bad as the racist whites. They do the same thing. They just say, oh, the white people are doing it to us, so we should do it back. The white people are claiming ancestry from all this stuff, so we should do it back. Which isn't the answer. The answer is to just kill them with facts, not kill them with made-up bull, you know. This place has been a sanctuary, and it's always a few idiots that ruin everything. It is true, but with that what if Africa was never colonized by Europeans video, it wasn't just a few idiots, it was a lot of idiots. Like this many good people and this many idiots. So that's why I had to disable the comments. I wonder if that lady knows that Prophet's first son adoptive was a black man. He freed himself from slavery. Not sure about that. I personally don't know. I haven't really done enough research into that. But yeah, there were several Islamic kingdoms all throughout African history, and people usually will say Islamic. It was really the Islamic slave trade, not the Arabic slave trade, which many fail to acknowledge as well. I just watched a documentary on Inca, and the comments were disabled. It makes you wonder what stupid things are being written. I'm surprised. Usually, if it's talking about any non-African culture, there's nothing but praise and appreciation. If it's talking about African and any good bad comments nonstop, you can literally go on a video talking about like the possibility of Europeans making it to the Americas first, or sorry, about the Japanese making it to the Americas first or something. Or Europeans making it to the Americas before Native Americans. Like there's a whole documentary about the Clovis people possibly being European, for example. Nothing but good comments, like to dislike ratios, like 99%, just good stuff all across the board. Then I can make a video about African history preaching nothing but facts, unbiased, no hatred, clear, neutral tone, and have a like to dislike ratio that's like 2/3 if I'm lucky. Like it's pretty bad. These races need to be consistent and intellectually honest, as slavery has existed in every culture since recorded history. Exactly, it has. This is one of the few channels regarding African culture where the host does an excellent job of being historically accurate. Even the alternate histories are reasonable extrapolations. Exactly. That's what like I said, I do my best, because nobody's going to take you seriously if you just lie and make stuff up. Like, I promise to you guys, to the day I die when I'm making these videos, if I say something and I'm not completely sure that it's true, I will tell you. I will say, however, there is no sufficient archaeological evidence of this happening. I'll tell you, so I'll say something along those lines. Like, if you can find a spot in my video when I don't, if I'm unsure about something and I don't say that afterwards or before, let me know. There has always been racism towards blacks from the Arab world and within Islam. Ahmed Baba works proves this, in some hand disproved this, yet it doesn't diminish the atrocities perpetuated by Europeans. Because Europeans, their atrocities performed on Africans not only were on a larger scale, like literally the whole continent, but they also linger to this day. The entire political, economic, linguistic, and cultural makeup of Africa today is still stained with the banner of European colonialism and racism. That's what a lot of these racists fail to realize. Alright, let's go to the next comment. We were the fist to mine. Yeah, we were the fist to mine, guys. The fist people to mine. We were the fist to mine. Did you think we just hope and pray for precious metals and gems? Do you think Mensa Musa just found a rainbow with an oversized pot of gold? Oh wait, I'm sorry. I'm making fun of this guy, even though he made a good point. I wish I recorded the comment that he replied to. The guy who he replied to was saying that Africans never mined or were using stone tools, and that Europeans were the ones who exploited all the raw resources because they weren't being tapped by Africans themselves. He says, we were the first to mine. Do you think that we just hoped and prayed for precious metals and gems? Did you think Mansa Musa just found a rainbow with an oversized pot of gold? Or maybe the ancient Egyptians and Nubian people were costume trinkets and jewels? By your logic, we only traded fried chicken with ancient Chinese merchants. You're silly. Thanks for the laughs. Which is true, When people assume that, Africans were using stone and stuff, it's like, obviously you've never even bothered even Googling a picture of traditional African dress or jewelry or weapons or anything, armor, because it was there. And if you even bothered looking for even a second, my hoodie looks so lopsided. Yeah, Arabs hated black people. Have you studied the Zand Rebellion, which took place? Yes, I have. But the thing is, even then, the Zand Rebellion was actually properly regarded as a slave rebellion. It wasn't necessarily a Zand rebellion. It was more generally a slave rebellion. So there are people of all colors who participated in that rebellion, not just the Zanj people of East Africa. Though the Zanj may have made up a good percentage, but history didn't document it well enough to know for sure what the racial makeup of that rebellion was. They'd still have all their gems, including diamonds, but it would still be in the ground. Yeah, here it is. This is the comment I was telling you guys about, the one I just read. This is what the guy said. They still have all their gems, including diamonds, but it will still be in the ground. And this was the guy's reply to it. Like, it's crazy how little people know. It's depressing how little people know. Like, some people aren't even trying to be rude occasionally. People aren't even trying to be rude. They just don't know, and they therefore assume. What weapons did the Ethiopians use to push back the Italians? I don't remember the weapons by names. The majority of Ethiopia's military consisted of armed gunmen. Like, they had modern weapons that they bought mostly from the Russians. But then the ones who didn't would use traditional weapons such as bows and arrows, spears, and I can't remember what their swords were called, but they kind of shaped like a hook or a sickle. It wasn't scimitars. It was an indigenous Ethiopian weapon. I can't remember the name. But yeah, most of their army had modern weapons and modern artillery. And the Italians were taken by surprise and destroyed by the Ethiopians. And that war actually had modern media coverage too. Like the whole world was in shock. Like the whole world just like stopped. You're like, what? What just happened? Did an African country really just defeat a European nation in a large scale war and preserve their independence? What? That's not supposed to happen. The Ethiopians used the shotel. Yeah, that's what they're called, shotel, as well as guns and cannons they bought. They had Gatling guns, did the Ethiopians, and they won the war against the Italians by winning the intelligence battle and luring the Italians out from a fortification. It was a great example of deception. Yeah, and then even then, they let the Italians return back to their home country, including Italian East Africa, which bordered Ethiopia. They let them go back to there. They could have taken Eritrea from the Italians and pretty much just slaughtered every Italian that was still alive if they wanted to, but they let them go. They were even documented. Menelik was the ruler at the time. He was even documented. Was it Menelik? Yeah, it was. He was even documented giving the Italians horses and food to return home. They need to make a film about the Ethiopian War. There's so many African wars they need to make films about. The only African wars I ever see films about are ones where Americans were involved and they were the heroes. Black Hawk Down, for example, where they called the Somali the skinnies, and basically the black people were bad. Tears of the Sun, which took place during the Nigerian Civil War, there was an American Special Forces group there that were defeating the evil Italian guys, and then the innocent. I mean, the only black people, there was one or two black two black Americans. One of them died and one got severely wounded at the end. And then as far as the black Africans, either they were enemies or they were victims. There were no African heroes in that movie. So yeah, those are really the only two African wars I can think of, and they're relatively modern wars too, as far as movies are concerned. They need to make, like the Anglo-Ashanti Wars would be a really good movie, for example. The Anglo-Ashanti Wars, they did do one on the Zulu, but the Zulu were so overrated. No offense to anybody who's of Zulu, the Zulu in general, but I think they're so overrated and so overpraised that people assume that a fine definition of an African military would be the Zulu, which they had great battle strategies, great military tactics, but they were still, at the end of the day, they were still very primitive. Like technologically, architecturally, they were still relatively primitive compared to several other African kingdoms I can think of right now. Thus, people assume that they were like the best Africa had to offer when they weren't. Like they were far from the best Africa had to offer. You're gonna lose some subscribers? How so? Oh, for the comments? Yeah, I've already lost 2 since the stream started, but I mean, if I'm gonna lose subscribers for calling out the idiots, by all means, I'm refining my pool of subscribers to people who are actually not idiots, so I don't care. World War II joke: how do you defeat an Italian tank? Easy, you shoot the soldiers pushing it. Easy with the Italian jokes. I'm FBI, full-blooded Italian. Yeah, I agree. Zulus were cool, but compared to other African civilizations, they would have lost. Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Hotel Rwanda and Last King of Scotland, awesome movies. Yeah, I haven't seen either of those. I've heard of them. I never actually watched them. Sorry, I'm French, by the way. All right, let's go to the next one. Oh, that's different. Oh, this was on Home Team History's video. This isn't my comment. This is Home Team History just released a new video today, and I watched it. It was top 5 African scholars. This guy says they were African Muslim scholars. They definitely viewed themselves heavily as Muslims. Okay. So the guy says, not sure what you're getting at. You're just exposing Africa and Muslim as if they are 2 continents or 2 religions. There is no comparison. Being a devout Muslim does not make one less African. Muslim isn't a nationality. And then he says, it's a culture and a way of life. My point was he didn't mention much about them being Muslims, which they seen themselves as first. Plus, I highly doubt they knew the word Africa, and they most certainly didn't use the word Africa. We know they just viewed themselves as Muslims first because they fought with other Africans around them. So then I had to step in. I said, so what? Most Arabic scholars saw themselves as Muslims first too. What's your point? What would you say? Would you have said the same thing if you made a top 5 Arabic scholars video? I mean, that's pretty much what it comes down to. People, whenever you talk about an African kingdom, like scholarly or something, and if it's an Islamic kingdom or empire, they always say, oh, those were Arabic, those were Muslim empires. And it's like, no, they were African empires ruled by black people who just so happen to be Muslims. I mean, would you call Europeans? Should we call Europeans? Should we say they're not European? They're Turkish, because Christianity started off in Turkey, right? So yeah, let's just say they're Turkish instead. How about that? I wonder how they would feel about that. All right, so let's see. Universal making a film apparently about the Amanarinas. I'm not sure what that is. The director of the recent Roots series is making it. Yeah, I can't say I'm a fan of series like Roots and stuff. It's like we hear enough about slavery. We need to learn about stuff besides slavery for once. Sick of hearing about days of getting sprayed with fire hoses and drinking from separate fountains and picking cotton. Like, I'm sick of seeing movies about that. I want to see movies about, the Benin Empire battling against the Oyo, or the Ethiopians defeating Italians. Those are movies we need to be seeing. So what, LL, the medieval Europeans identified as Christians, does that make them Hebrews now? Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Alright, thought I had more comments than that. Oh, probably shouldn't show that. It said it would still be a hole. That was a comment to the African one. The what would Europe still be like if it was never, or what would Africa still be like if it was still colonized by Europeans, or if it was never colonized by Europeans? I can't talk. I'm sorry, guys. And then there's another one. If not for Europeans/Arabs, all of Africa below the Sahara would still be in Stone Age conditions the Europeans discovered there. What Stone Age conditions did Europeans discover in Africa? I'm very confused. Could anybody tell me that? Like what part of Africa could you have went to, even in the year like 1300, long before over a century before Europeans even arrived? What part of Africa in the year 1300 still had people living in the Stone Age? I'm very confused. Like, people tend to compare. I think I replied to this guy, actually. I hope I did. And I basically said, I think I replied saying that people have this overwhelming tendency to compare African civilizations to Native American civilizations. Like, Native Americans were in the Stone Age, which is cool, I'm not insulting them, but Native Americans were in the Stone Age. Native Americans were chipping flint and putting them on the edge of sticks for arrows, but Africans weren't. Like, thousands of years ago they were, but so was Europe thousands of years ago. But in the past, for the past 1,500 years or so, nearly the entire continent of Africa was in the Iron Age. West Africa and Central Africa have been in the Iron Age for over 2,000 years. And then even the hunter-gatherers, like the Khoisan people of the Kalahari Desert, were they didn't smith iron themselves, but they traded it from neighboring people who did. Like, a European could have went to the Kalahari Desert in the middle of nowhere, people wearing, animal skins and hunting for food, and they would still have iron-tipped spears. A movie of Mountain Musa's Hajj to Mecca would be cool. He brought hundreds of people with him, and even drafts, I think. Yeah, that would be pretty awesome. Especially seeing his effect on the Mediterranean economy. It's said that he caused a severe inflation to the Mediterranean economy that lasted over a decade. Just one guy was that wealthy. And that over half of the world's gold came from West Africa during the Middle Ages. All the fuel to European kingdoms and power to European kingdoms came from Africa, African gold. And then later, African labor, unfortunately. And now today, African resources African raw materials for the industrial age. I don't know what's dumber, the name Fuzzy Bunny or the stupid comment. Yeah. The European travelers who visited various kingdoms were impressed with what they saw. There are so many quotes throughout history, like Dapper, when he visited a Dutch traveler who visited the Benin Kingdom. He was so impressed. He was even quoted saying that there was no other king in the land who was in possession of so many beautiful palaces and cities. And he even compared the Benin capital to in size. He said that the palace complex of Benin City alone, just the palace complex, was larger than the entire city of Harlem. Like, not the modern Harlem, the Harlem in Netherlands. They never always said such foolishness when you hit them with facts about the knock on the Great Lakes steel metallurgy. They began to call you Afrocentrists. It's insane. I had one guy tell me that the ancient furnaces of the of East Africa that date back over 2,000 years, those furnaces were capable of producing high carbon steel that was never even replicated by Europeans until the 1800s. And when I was arguing with some racists about that, and he claimed that they were just burnt out tree stumps. Like, how in the hell can you mistake a furnace with a burned out tree stump? Like, they just literally start spewing lies once they realize they're wrong. Bushmen practically lived in the Stone Age. They did. They did live in the Stone Age as far as their lifestyle. Like, they were hunter-gatherers. They, mostly wore animal skins, but they had iron tools. They traded, I don't know, raw hides and meat and stuff like that to agricultural societies for iron tools. They know like stone tools were obsolete among the Khoisan, which were the Bushmen. Bushman is just a really offensive term for Khoisan people, so I try to avoid using it. Native Americans successfully fought and repelled the Leif Erikson and his Viking invaders. Yeah, back then, technologically, the Vikings weren't really that much better. I mean, they had metal, they had iron, they had they were more technologically advanced, and they had horses and boats and stuff, but, I mean, if someone has a stone-tipped spear and you have an iron-tipped spear, that stone-tipped spear is still going to kill you. So, not to mention there were probably more Native Americans than the Vikings in those areas at the time. And the Vikings weren't really used to that kind of climate either. It was much colder there than their homelands. What would your opinion have been like if Romans didn't colonize them? That is a very good video idea, but at the same time, I'm trying to steer clear of that. My idea is going to be, what if there was an African equivalent of Rome or China? That's going to be one of my next big projects. I'm sure many of you have already heard me talk about that before. The Khoisan people, however, people forgot to mention North Europe was tribal, like the Picts. The Sami were also tribal as well. The Sami to this day, many people don't know. Sami, S-A-A-M-I, Sami people of Scandinavia still hunt and gather for food and still live in little animal skin teepees to this day up in Europe. So, I mean, it just depends on what climate you're in. If the Khoisan lived in deserts, growing food just won't work in a desert. You can't grow food in a desert. Just like you can't grow food up where they live. They live up in the really cold reaches of Scandinavia. Hollywood would never show Africa past in a good light, mainly because Hollywood doesn't find Africa history worth storytelling, only unless black people were slaves. Yeah. I mean, it's like Prince of Persia. They made the Persian prince white. So that should say a lot. And then in 300s, in the movie 300, all the Greeks were pasty white guys, when we know that in reality they're not. I mean, there were some white Greeks, but most whites have more of an olive skin tone and curly dark hair. And they made them all like these pasty white dudes. So I mean, they have to portray their heroes as white people. I mean, that's how they feel they're gonna make the most money. Europe would have been a barbaric, savage land without Roman colonization. I wouldn't necessarily say barbaric or savage, but it definitely wouldn't be as technologically advanced, not even close, as it is today. Nor would it. We probably wouldn't even be having this conversation right now if it weren't for the Romans. Even today, our society is modeled. Even our White House in the United States is modeled off of Roman architecture. So, the Romans had a really big influence on Europe. Please recommend some sources, example books to start learning about the topic of your channel. Um, my sources are very. I post sources occasionally on my Patreon account, but as far as just recommending new places, there aren't like one or two places I go. I have sources everywhere. I always do a lot of research every time I make a video. All right, I'm getting kind of behind on the comments, but why wasn't there an African equivalent to Roman or China? Easy, the Sahara Desert. The Sahara Desert was basically like a sea, just like how there was no Rome equivalent of, well, actually there kind of was, I guess, but that's two whole continents, the Americas, the Aztec, but even then they were still in the Stone Age. But the reason why was because the Sahara Desert, like, East Africa was connected to the Mediterranean economy via the Nile River. That's why, you know, you got Egypt, Nubia, Ethiopia, all those Somalia, all those East African kingdoms were relatively more technologically advanced than Sub-Saharan Africa, because they were connected to the Mediterranean economy. They were exposed to all the innovations like compasses and gunpowder and writing and stuff like that. Whereas West Africa, or the remainder of Sub-Saharan Africa, they had to cross the entire Sahara Desert, which is literally the size of the United States, to be exposed to any of that. So, not saying that didn't happen. They had the camel caravans, the salt and gold caravans, but it was significantly slower progress than the East African, because the Nile River, it was a wet, lush, fertile land that they could easily network through. Alright. So yeah, anyway, let's go to the next comment. This was on the what if, not surprisingly, what if Africa was never colonized by Europeans video. This guy says, let's shut down their electricity, communication, and medical supplies to find out how Africa would look without Europeans. And I said, right after you take away your very existence, because, you know, humans originated in Africa, as did the first civilizations and writing systems. Oh, not to mention that in the Middle Ages, 50% of the world's gold came from Africa, financing the power and wealth of your European nations, in addition to the free forced labor acquired from Africans, and all the simple luxuries that we enjoy in life. Most of their origins are from the raw materials of Africa. Let's not forget farming and metalworking all had their origins in North Africa and the Middle East. All achievements of Europe came from elsewhere until the modern era. Europe has only recently become the powerhouse that it is after Romans civilized them, utilizing innovations from North Africa and the Middle East. Your mentality is the reason why this channel exists in the first place. People look at modern Africa and modern Europe as the basis of what it has always been and what it has always been and what it is. Oh, I can't read. I'm sorry. What it has always been and what it always will be. I totally skipped over, but you get what I'm saying. Which is totally false. The human race is more complex than that, and all civilizations have had their ups and downs throughout history. OMG, I'm late. Yes, you are. You should unsubscribe right now for being late. You did a terrible... I'm joking. Like I said, if you want to catch my streams, every Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Every Monday. And if there's any changes, you can find them on my Facebook or my Twitter. I will always keep you guys up to date, or in my Discord as well. My Discord server, my Facebook, and my Twitter. I always tell you when I'm going live. I always tell you if there's changes. I mean, you'll get access to stuff that you won't get access to even on the streams or on my videos. And you can do the commands like Discord or Twitter, so on, to get the links to them. Carthage's empire extended further south than most people think. Sub-Saharan Africans were pretty important to their empire, and especially their military. I think economically, yes. Militaristically, yes. Technologically, no. I think most of their technology and then the overall hub of their empire was in North Africa, though. Because, like, you know, African elephants, for example, were used in Hannibal's, was it Hannibal? I think I'm getting people mixed up. Hannibal's military. And, you know, the trade that happened between Sub-Saharan Africa, like Sub-Saharan African goods up to Europe was really important too, because getting exotic animals and resources from Sub-Saharan Africa was incredibly difficult due to the Sahara. How's that costume of yours coming? It's good. I have a lot of stuff already. I just want to showcase it all at the same time. I don't want to just bits and pieces, little by little, over time. I want it to just be like what you see now and what you see then. For those of you who don't know, this hoodie that I wear every stream is just a filler. I'm gonna actually have a costume to fit the theme of the Empire. So yeah, if you see some random guy that you don't recognize on the stream one day, it's me. And yeah, it's gonna be there's gonna be a lot more interactivity to this stream. It's gonna be more than just me sitting here talking. You know, it's gonna be pretty cool. I got some really cool stuff planned. Most of their tech was from Phoenicia, as it was a colony. Yep, the Carthaginians traded with Macrobian Ethiopians mentioned by the Greeks, who were likely the ancestors of Soninke, who built Dar Tichet and Walata. Hannibal used elephants until Scipio countered them with trumpets and moving troops in columns out of the way. Yeah, it's kind of surprising that no other African militaries adopted elephants, though. Like, that would have been pretty effective on in battle, especially against European infantry troops. We're gonna dress up like a panda, definitely. Gonna dress up like a panda, you know, spray paint my cheeks with like, or put some rosy red cheeks on my costume, you know, all that good stuff. Have a pink background. When are your new videos coming out? It's been a long time. I know, like, it's been really busy. It's been a very, very busy. I've been working on my videos, but the progress has been slow, and it's probably going to be even slower now that I'm back in school. But I'll try to get something for you guys soon. Can't give you a definitive date, because if I do and I don't deliver during that date, I'll feel bad. So I'm not gonna make any promises. Apart on Mount Kilimanjaro, does it snow in Africa? It does snow in North Africa, like in the Atlas Mountains of Northern Africa. There's actually like full-blown ski resorts there. But as far as Sub-Saharan Africa is concerned, Kilimanjaro and then the other nearby mountains, I forgot the name of the mountain range, but it's a mountain range in Eastern Africa, and several of them have snow on top. But other than that, no. And I think South Africa occasionally gets snow. It's kind of like Florida. Florida is subtropical, so it doesn't snow. Occasionally it can snow, but it generally doesn't. That's how South Africa is. Do you see race as significant? Personally, me, I don't see race as significant at all. But the world does, and that's why the channel exists in the first place, because I want to change people's views of that. I want them to realize that there can be people who are brilliant people in every race and idiots in every race. That's why I have videos where I'm calling out Afrocentrics, and I'm actually planning a video where I'm calling out the racists. I mean, that one's just too easy, though. That's why I never really done it. But, yeah. No, I don't see it as a significant, but the world and centuries of slavery, colonization, and segregation have made the world think it is significant when it's not. Elephants rendered most cavalry useless as horses were terrified. I'd be terrified if I saw an elephant. An elephant can literally step on your car and total it, you know? So, I mean, I'm sure any living creature would be terrified if they saw an elephant. Apparently the Nubians did. What? The Nubians used elephant cavalry? Carthage had smaller elephants than other parts of Africa. That's why other Africans never used elephants like Asians did. I mean, Africa has different subspecies of elephants, though, all throughout the continent. Like, there are the savanna elephants and the forest elephants, and forest elephants are a lot smaller than savanna elephants. And I think there's also pygmy elephants, too. I think. Well, maybe not in Africa. I don't know. Maybe Carthage had Indian elephants? I mean, I doubt it because India was so far away from them, but I don't know. Elephants can't be domesticated, only tamed. You need to capture them one by one. They're extremely expensive. Yep, because the rules to domestication are a creature that can easily be trained. Smart animals are not really good. Like really smart animals are not good candidates for domestication. That's one general rule. Very smart elephants animals like elephants, because once they get smart enough to counter all the human traps and stuff, they'll try to get out. It's just natural. Another thing, they have to have a short life. They have to have a short life and reproduce quickly, like dogs and cats, or pretty much think of any domesticated animal. They all fit this criteria. They can't be too smart. They have to reproduce quickly. They have to have a short life, and they have to be relatively easy to maintain and feed. Elephants don't fit any of that. They live long lives. They're very smart. They take a lot to feed, and they don't reproduce quickly at all. They have one offspring like every 5 years or something crazy like that. So, and they take a really long time to grow up. That's another one. They have to grow up really fast. Like cats and dogs, they're mature in like a year. Elephants take almost as long as humans. I think they might even take longer than humans actually to fully mature. Yeah, cats are smart. Cats and dogs are smart, but they're not that smart. I mean, like, you can literally put a balloon, a row of balloons in front of your cat to keep it from getting somewhere, and it'll think it's trapped. You know, like, even if it sees that balloons are very lightweight, it'll probably take it a while to figure out that I can get through. So, I mean, they're smart, but they're not as smart as elephants. You ever threw a balloon over a cat and it like ran away like crazy, like freaked out, thinking it was gonna get crushed? Try it. There's legends as to why Alexander the Great avoided Nubia, because the Nubian queen had elephants and a good war formation he couldn't attack. I don't know. Nubia in general has always been a very difficult military to conquer, because they were known for their archers, like having expert archers. Even the Romans couldn't defeat the Nubians. They conquered Egypt, but they could never conquer Nubia. The Nubians they even chopped off a head of the Roman emperor. I forgot his name. Augustus, I think. I don't know. They chopped off the head of his statue and buried it, you know, like with the face still sticking out of the ground, right in the entrance of the palace, so that their feet would step on his face every time they walked in, as an insult to the Roman Empire. Like, that's how little respect they had for them, and they still were never conquered by the Romans. They battled them, but they were never conquered. And they were constantly causing trouble, because there were Nubians living in Egypt and being forced to be taxed by the Romans, which the Nubians obviously didn't like at all. So they rebelled against the Romans, and the Romans were like, yeah, it's not worth it. I mean, you can see the same pattern happening. If it's more trouble than it's worth, they're not going to try. Just like when they tried to conquer Scotland, for example, the Romans, they gave up because it was just too much. Same with the Germanic tribes. It was too much trouble for what it was worth. This is why they coined the phrase an elephant never forgets. Exactly. Elephants have like severe PTSD compared to humans. Like, if one little thing happens to them, they will never forget, and they will, like, if you do one little thing that hurts them, they will remember forever, and they will kill you on sight if they see you. How do you conquer Egypt? Or how do you conquer India? War elephants? You never heard of war elephants? No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that was what that statement was. They're literally little tigers that live in your house. Yeah, they are. They are literally little tigers that live in your house. This one even bites me. Mine's actually sitting right next to me. I would show you guys, but it would mess up my green screen setup. So, but yeah, she definitely actually see my hoodie, see these strings, these drawstrings or whatever on my hoodie. Shut up. This one right here. That's the doing of this little miniature tiger. Just why they coined the phrase earlier that Romans were not great archers. No, they depended more on their infantry and their cavalry. They had very good military strategy. That was where their power, most of their power came from. Not necessarily the individual skill of each of their warriors, but more of their collective military strategy and their technology. That was where their strongest. That was how they were the strongest. Germans in the north, Nubians in the south. Yep, pretty much. And then Scottish in the west. Kinda. One small spot, but you know. The northwest. That's why we also migrated up to the south. And what's up, Vodka? Sorry I didn't respond to that before. Was it the terrain that made it too much trouble? No, it wasn't the terrain. It was the. Well, that was the terrain. I mean, the Nubian terrain's not really much different from Egypt. I think, like I said, I think it was the war strategies and battle tactics. Like Egypt has been conquered by so many people throughout history, left and right, back to back. But Nubians, the Egyptians and the Romans actually would even recruit Nubians as mercenaries because of their skill in warfare, especially their archers. That was probably their main issue, you know, because back then their war the Romans didn't, like I said, they were mostly infantry and cavalry. So if you have a military of primarily people shooting you with arrows, you know, that's gonna thin the herd pretty fast. Like a bunch of people marching together in a tight formation with shields and just a rain of arrows coming down at them. That's gonna take out a good portion of them before they even get anywhere close. Especially if they're attacking, you know, like they're like breaking them up, like guerrilla warfare basically. Elephants mourn their dead for crying out loud. They even mourn humans, which they are close. Yeah, they do. There have even been documents of elephants like carrying off bones of deceased elephants and attempting to bury them. And they guard the bodies from predators too. The Romans did not like the heat of the southern Egypt and could not have spread the supply line to extend Nubia. Nubians were great at defensive war. I doubt heat was an issue because their empire extended into the deserts of the Middle East too, and that was most certainly a hot place. I think it was really just more of the. It's like, not to get too controversial, but like the Vietnam War, when the United States went to Vietnam and they had too much trouble, it was more trouble than it was worth to continue that war. Too much death, too much money, too much everything. So our troops were withdrawn. Like that's pretty much what happened with Rome and Nubia. It's just not worth it anymore to stay any longer, you know. Nubia and Egypt were and still are Africa. Yes, they are. I'm not sure if anybody who said otherwise. Romans or Ottomans who had more a strong stranglehold on the African continent. Probably the Ottomans, because the Ottomans were in Africa during the Age of Firearms, and they extended all the way down well into sub-Saharan Africa. The Romans never made it that far into Africa. And not to mention, the Romans were just Romans. That's it. Whereas the Ottomans were part of a greater Islamic empire. Like all Islamic nations were cooperative back then. It was actually illegal to wage war on other Islamic empires back then as well. The Romans didn't have any such alliances. It was just Romans, and that's it. You know, just themselves. Obviously, they had some, you know, vassals and allies, but you get the idea. What's up, Danzo? West Asians only began winning when the fire stick came into play. Have you ever heard of the Byzantine general Belarus? I have not. Belisarius. I can't read today. The Sinhalese, another thing that's annoying is people saying Sinhalese people are black sub-Saharan African when the Sinhalese islands border India. The Sinhalese, people look at dark skin and automatically classify it as all one big group when it's not true. Like, they look at Australian Aborigines and say, oh, the Aborigines are an example of black people who never accomplished anything, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, they're Australian Aborigines, not Africans. They're not even related to Africans whatsoever. Like, the two most genetically diverse people in the world from one another would be Africans and Australian Aborigines. Reason being, the Australian Aborigines were among the first groups of human ancestors to migrate from the continent. So over all that time, natural selection, genetic mutations have given the Australians, being separated from Africa for 50,000 years, more time to change genetically. So they're more closely related to literally every other race on the planet than Africans. No such place as sub-Saharan Africa. I wouldn't say all that. I mean, Africa is Africa, but sub-Saharan Africa and North Africa definitely have some pretty significant differences. Genetically, for example, you know, black Africa is... Sub-Saharan Africans are generally black, you know. North Africans, there are black North Africans, there are. But, you know, most of them are lighter-skinned people like Berbers. Or they definitely have different physical features. Not saying that's all that matters, but also culturally, most North Africans are Islamic. Well, pretty much every North African is Islamic. Actually, every North African civilization is Islamic. Their history is just a lot more different and complex than sub-Saharan. So I see why the differences are there, why it's distinguished, but I think some people just take it way too far as a way to discredit any African accomplishments, especially like the Mali Empire. They say, "Oh, that was a North African, that was a Saharan empire," and it's like, yeah, part of the empire reached into the Sahara, but it was founded by black Africans from the south. Why does it matter, you know? Ottoman had relations with Somali and Ethiopian Adal Empire. Ottoman had relations with so many. I'm pretty sure the Ottomans reached all the way down to modern day Kenya. Yeah, let me bring up a new tab of the Ottoman Empire. Alright, let's see. Ottoman Empire, greatest extent. Okay, am I just remembering wrong? I thought it went all the way down to Kenya. Huh. Sorry for the misinformation. I thought it went all the way down to Kenya. What was I thinking? Well, never mind. I don't know what I was thinking. Alright, the Ottomans were allies with the Khanate Empire of Chad. The Ottomans even gave them guns and rifles. That's pretty awesome. Alright, do we have any more comments to go over? Oh, here's one. This guy says, oh, this was actually, yeah, he said, terrible video. This was on my, Cities Built by Africans Part 1 video. He said, terrible video. A lot of what ifs in this video was mostly nonsense. I was expecting explanations of how Africa would be better. Instead, we got... No, wait, actually, no. No, this was on the what would Africa be like if it were never colonized by Europeans video. I was expecting more explanations on how Africa would be better. Instead, we got, well, it would just be better. It's pretty obvious that Africa is by far the worst continent to live, and is in no way successful. It's especially pathetic because Europe was ravaged by the plague, and they still dominated Africa. Even in modern times, with all the advancements in the entire continent, is still pathetic. Advancement not made in Africa, and making excuses to try to make a culture look successful is just a bad joke. And I said, you are looking at this in an overly simplified manner. First of all, Europe is almost 4 times smaller than Africa, with no deserts and fertile lands. 2. Europe was culturally united by the Roman Empire for over 2,000 years ago, acquiring, adopting, and improving upon all of her technology and innovations, as well as spreading a common religion, Christianity. 3. Europe was united with a greater world economy, so they had access to things such as paper, gunpowder, compasses, and all the technological accomplishments of the rest of Eurasia, which, might I add, is a huge landmass, which contained and still does contain the majority of the world's population. Fourth, Africans weren't always poor. Up until colonialism, Africa supplied over 50% of the world's gold and was covered in many kingdoms and empires. 5, Africa was only connected to Eurasia by sea, West Africa. And desert caravans, oh, I meant to put East Africa. Whoops. In desert caravans of West Africa, both of which were very long and dangerous journeys, thus the progress was slow. 6, unlike Europe, the entirety of Africa was conquered by a completely different continent, different people, culture, language, religion, way of life, forms of government, and on top of that, their borders were cut up with total disregard for indigenous ones. The only concern for Europeans was how they could exploit the people for resources. Natural borders like rivers, lakes, and mountains didn't factor into this whatsoever, like they did elsewhere. They have only been independent in modern times for less than a century. By the way, still adapting to totally foreign governments, religions, ways of life, and borders that they didn't even want. So yes, I do think Africa would have been better off because just like the rest of the world, they would have been able to grow naturally and not be totally shafted by European ambitions. Colonialism is responsible for Africa's current state. Of course, he never replied. Ottoman's empire proves racists wrong. Do you believe that Sub-Saharan Africa had written language? Sub-Saharan Africa had a few written languages. Sorry guys, I have a phone call. I'll answer that question later. Hold that thought. Hello? Hey. Alright, so this miniature tiger that I was telling you guys about tried to steal my seat when I got up. For those of you who haven't met her yet. Alright, so yeah. Anyway, yes, Sub-Saharan Africa did have written language, but not on the scale or extent as many Eurasian places had. Ethiopia had a script and still uses it to this day, actually, called Ge'ez. And then there were other ones, like one found in Nigeria known as MCBD or MCDB. There were several, but none that took off to the point where like you'd go there and there were like treaties and documents and history recorded in their script. Like Sub-Saharan Africa collectively never had anything like that. The most widespread script of Sub-Saharan Africa up until European colonization was Arabic, and that was primarily in West Africa. So at North Dakota we did, but only a few. Yeah, exactly. I love when racists talk about Africa like they've researched it or been in any country there. Yeah, I've never been to Africa. I never claimed to have been to Africa before, but I love history, I love geography, and I'm very interested in both of those topics of Africa. So I'm very, like, I do a lot of research in it. So, I mean, I don't claim I know everything, but I feel like I can, if you ask me any questions, like one of you guys asked me about snow in Africa, for example, I mean, I've researched that before because I'm just very interested in that stuff. Most of Africa lies within, the tropics, so obviously snow's not really going to be in any place regularly unless it's a high altitude. But yeah, writing was exclusive to metal workers and medicine men. Depends on what part. Like, in CBD, it was used for the secret societies of the Igbo, and I forgot it was one other ethnic group that used it. but it wasn't used as like a formal script that, you know, scholars would use for trade and commerce. You know, it was just something they'd use in like secret religious rituals and things like that. Hard to explain this, but I think modern weaponry is the main reason why Africa hasn't been able to bounce back. I think it was a number of things. It was the modern weaponry is what allowed Africa to get colonized. The artificial borders cut up was another problem. The isolation because of the Sahara Desert made technological innovations really slow, like paper and writing and stuff. And then the fact that completely foreign languages and religions were religions, ways of life, and borders were all forced on them in literally a few decades. And different forms of, you know, governments as well. I think that was the main downfall of Africa collectively. You know anything about the Sudanese pyramids? They have over 100 plus. I mean, I do know they were made by the Nubians. Do know there's debate over which ones are older, the Egyptians or the Nubians pyramids, but common scholarly is that the Nubians adopted the practice from Egyptians. But you know how it is. A lot of those sources are pretty unreliable. That's all I can really tell you about them, to be honest. They're called Leopard Society, Secret Society. Yep. It's weird, even those who had the Arabic script, they preferred oral history for some reason. I don't know about all that. I mean, the Mali Empire absolutely embraced, like, they really embraced books. Like, scholarly was like the thing. Like, if you're going to Timbuktu, you wanted to go there for the books. I mean, even our huts were pyramid shaped. Without law and order, no society can really thrive. Which is what the pyramids are. Grand huts, I guess. Alright, we're just over an hour now, guys. Just like usual, I do stream, you know, in between the schedule here and there. If you like the stream and you enjoyed it, go ahead and click that like button, please, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and join the Discord, because we have discussions like this all the time, you know, all throughout the day. You know, Tim Von Rygen can vouch for that. Like, me and him have been having conversations every day in the Discord, like via the chat, the text, just asking questions, theory crafting, stuff like that. So just hop in Discord, hang out, follow me on Twitter and Facebook to stay up to date on everything. Become a patron if you have any video ideas. You know, support me on Patreon, at least a tier 2, and you can submit a video request, which I will do. You know, and I'm working on a few patron requests right now, actually. So, or you know, even if you don't want to be a patron, if you're at least a $5 plus donator, you can also submit a video idea as well. But yeah, I'm gonna see you guys next time. I may be doing streaming again sometime later this week. Who knows? But same time, same place, 3 p.m. Eastern time on Mondays. I'll always be here. So, and if I can't, like I said, Facebook and Twitter, I'll let you guys know in advance that I can't, or whether there's a change in schedule. I'll see you guys next time.